What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Masculine Health Solutions podcast, where today we are going to be discussing some of the questions that I get, right? And the first question I really like because it's one that I used to think about all the time, right? And that was just like circulation, right? It was something that I came across and I did not fully understand what it entailed and what it really meant and what discoloration, all these other things meant. So the question goes as such: how do I monitor circulation when I'm doing PE? And is there anything that I should do specifically, right? So to give you a little bit of context, basically what this guy is doing is that he's hanging with the back hanger, right? So in doing so, I'm like, well, over time, the first thing you got to remember is that when it comes to circulation, right, you are going to experience some numbness when you're doing any type of hanging, right? Compression hanging, like I'll get into a little bit later. The other thing too with a vac hanger, a vac extender device, like anything that basically will, I guess, not necessarily put pressure, but almost like it's almost like that oxygenated blood isn't going to make its way to the glands or to the penis during that time, is going to lead to poor circulation, right? Because it's very different than when you're doing something like an edge session, right? Where it's like nothing but circulation, feels delicious, feels great. But when you're doing some like vac hanging, like I was telling him, what I would recommend, if you're a vac hanger, right, and you're worried about your circulation, you're like, how do I monitor my circulation? The best way that I would go about it, number one, start off with smaller sets, right? And then have a journal. Monitor what it feels like, what it looks like after a 5-minute set, after a 10-minute set. Then over time, progressively overload and be like, okay, now that I did 15 minutes, I still had pretty decent circulation. My body didn't react that badly to it. I think I'm okay. So maybe next time I'll do 15, 20 minutes. Maybe you can increase it in 1-minute increments. It depends on what works best for you. In doing so, you'll be able to gauge it appropriately. A lot of us will jump in, we'll read what other guys say on the forum and then say, hey, you know what? That guy can do it. I can do it. But he's been at it for 10 years. So it's going to be very different than what you can do. And that's what you got to understand is that when you are looking into these new training methodologies, you got to account for the fact that you might be new or it's something that you've never done before, right? So if you're a newbie, you're starting off, you've never done PE and you're like, you know what? I'm going to jump in with some compression hanging. Cool. But what are you doing to ensure that you don't get injured, right? You got to make sure that you take into consideration the fact that you have never really done PE before. You're putting a brand new stimulus on your cock, and you may or may not fully understand the ramifications of using things in a certain way, right? The consequences, unfortunately, are usually discovered when we have accidents or when we just fuck up, right? So going back to what I was telling him, I told him that if you are going to do vac hanging and you want to monitor the circulation, the only way that you really know what's up is like, honestly, if you kind of tap your glands and be like, okay, can I kind of feel it? But the best way to go about it, in my opinion, like I mentioned before, is that you want to, number one, just take into consideration how you're feeling in that moment, right? So if you can feel your glands, like maybe do a Kegel, and if you can just feel it, right? And again, this is something that comes with time where you can just feel what your cock feels like under pressure, right? A lot of guys don't even know what that feels like and just assume that it might be all pain or it might be all pleasure. It depends on who you are, right? Long story short is that you have to learn how to gauge that with time, with experience. Initially, it might be a little bit more difficult. Anyways, going back to what I was saying initially, start off with the shorter increments, right? Gauge or look at the circulation after every session or after every set, and then go from there. Don't try to just stay in for as long as you can and say, okay, 30 minutes, that's my mark. It's a great way to get injured. So you don't want to do that, right? And that's what I essentially was telling him. I'm like, bro, you wanna just basically gauge it set by set. You want to build up a tolerance to what it is that you're doing. And you want to take note of how you feel after every set. How does it look after every set? And one of the biggest things too, as far as like markers go, is the blood back to normal in your penis after you're done your set? If it's not, if it's still, I mean, I've been there too, right? Where it's kind of like your glands are a little bit, it's kind of like when you squeeze your finger and it just looks purple. I've done that before too, where you're in the set for far too long. So to avoid that, you want to make sure that you are giving yourself the appropriate amount of time to recover in between sets as well, right? And you want to look at the markers that say, hey, your cock is good to go for another set. And one of those is kind of like, okay, it's back to normal as far as color goes. The sensitivity, does it feel good? Feels great. All right, cool. Keep going. Do another round, right? Another thing to keep in mind too is if you feel numbness or tingling, I would highly recommend stopping maybe for the day. Maybe for the day, be like, all right, cool. Maybe I'll just jump into my warm down set, try to restore circulation. Thing that I like to do, and like I was telling this gentleman, is like, yo, post workout, man, that's the importance of the warm down for me. I want to edge, I want to get that pump, and in pumping, again, you're bringing rich oxygenated blood into your cock. Post workout, if you're ever going to do any length work, and I'm going to have a video on that coming out soon too. Thing for me avoids the turtling, gives you a better flaccid hang. You're big, it looks thick and juicy. Now, nothing is better than pumping after a length session, in my opinion. There are people that got other modalities and other ways to go about it. Some people say you shouldn't do anything, whatever, right? But the way I see it is that if you have that wonderful flaccid hang, it's big, it's thick, it's engorged post workout. And that's the thing about pumping too, is that your flaccid hang is going to be huge and heavy the whole day. So why not? Because you're going to recover like this. You're going to avoid the turtling, avoid the retraction. In my opinion, it's spectacular. Nothing beats it, right? So that's my go to. However, depending on who you are, you can use an infrared heat pad, right? Check out my boys from gel2grow.com. They got that beautiful heat pad over there. You can check out the one at Total Man Shop as well. Links are always in the description. And you can go check it out, right? And you can get something that works best for you, right? Because if you can't afford it, then you know what? It's not going to work good for you. So in your case, you should just take a shower, edge for 5 minutes, and you're still going to restore that good circulation, get it back to normal. Basically, what I want you guys to do is after every single workout, always know that you're back to normal, you're restored. Circulation is where it needs to be. Erectile health is where it needs to be. Yes, you might suffer, physiological indicators post workout. Sometimes your dick's a little tired, man. Think about it. You put in all the stress on it, and then you expect it to perform like a stallion. Sometimes it can affect your sex life. You might be a little bit beat up. But again, you want to recover in the best way possible. The best way to leave a workout is with proper circulation, right? And knowing that you are functioning the way that you should on all cylinders, right? So that the next time you do your PE workout, you come back bigger, stronger, thicker, and juicier, man. So again, keep it locked here for more frequently asked questions. Gonna make sure we're doing more of these all week because, hey, you know what? I get more questions about PE than anything else. But like I said before, this podcast, I want to develop every aspect of us as men. Masculine Health Solutions, baby. You want to lose fat, want to be in good shape, and obviously, you want to get your cock as big as you possibly can. Let's go. See you guys in the next episode.